We're back. It's week 3 of Pinnacle FC. Gareth Wheeler, Jake Osgathorpe with you. It's one of those awkward times early in the season, not for us, because we're betting smart, betting Pinnacle, and we're digging into all the top games across European domestic football. But the transfer window slammed shut on Friday across most European domestic leagues, as well as we're heading into an international window following this weekend as well. Oh, joy. We're just ramping up, and then you hit the pause button. What do you make of that, just in terms of how that may influence this week we're looking at the markets, Jake?
I don't think it'll influence us too much in terms of the markets. It's just annoying as a fan, isn't it? I mean, you're just coming off admittedly, it was a short break this year with the Euros, but you just get in the groove, you're getting excited seeing how Liverpool are developing, seeing Man City come out of the blocks fast, which they usually do. And across Europe, everything's kicking into gear. And we've got to take a time out, guys. Time out. Got to go back to that international football. You know, the one that doesn't mean anything at this time of year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's cram one of those in. I know there are some World Cup qualifiers across the globe, but for Europe in particular, I think it's the Nations League, which, as an Englishman, now that we've been relegated to Group B, I have very little interest in. I didn't have any interest in it anyway, to be honest. But it's a weird time of the season, and then I think I'm right in saying that there's 4 games and then another international break. So, it's very, very stop-start, and it does make getting a handle on teams a little bit difficult. We usually like 6 game sample really to have a good gauge. We're not going to get that until mid-October, which is bizarre.
And still, we're still in the process of seeing some squads be built before our eyes or rebuilt. And it's been a little bit of an awkward start across some of the European domestic leagues. The Premier League's been pretty straightforward, to be honest with you, so far. But it's been chaos in Serie A. In La Liga, it's been a little bit of a stop again start as well. What do you make of the starts to the various campaigns that we've witnessed? We're only 1 week into the Bundesliga season, but you feel like despite the international window coming up, there's some big games in the Bundesliga this weekend.
There are, yeah, and that's what's even more frustrating, especially like in the Bundesliga. They're only going to have played twice before the next international break, and it's just not enough to get any kind of momentum going. Italy's the one we really want to touch on, because all the big teams have dropped points already, which in games you probably wouldn't have expected them to. I mean, AC Milan in their new regime under Fonseca not got going at all. Roma really struggling under De Rossi. Obviously, Bologna, we thought they might have a few problems, but they have got a few problems, as much as I didn't want them to. But yeah, the Premier League, as you said, it's kind of as you would expect, isn't it? You've got Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City all won both the matches. At the other end of the table, you've got Ipswich, Southampton, Leicester all in the bottom 6. It's been good, and I'm looking forward to this weekend, and then I'll be very angry for the next week and a half.
Well, we have 3 marquee fixtures in the Premier League this weekend, and let's start right there with some of those featured games, as well as some other plays that have caught our eye when we're looking at Pinnacle. Let's start off at Old Trafford on Sunday. It's Manchester United and Liverpool. You almost don't want to see a game like this early in the season, but here we are, and perhaps it might benefit Manchester United, although they're still making moves in the window, so seeing where they actually are this weekend, well, that remains to be seen at the time of recording on a Wednesday afternoon. Manchester United are coming off a 2-1 loss to Brighton, a last-minute goal scored by João Pedro, sunk United in a game where they didn't play poorly. It's just some of the frailties that have shown in recent years under Erik ten Hag continue to reveal themselves. They take on a Liverpool side that are playing a different way under Arne Slot, but 2 games, 2 wins, and 2 pretty convincing performances as well. There should be no surprise that Liverpool are the favorite heading into this game, minus 113. You can back United outright at plus 274. The draw at plus 320 on Pinnacle. The handicap set at half a goal, and the total is set at 3.25. United have had some success, at least in the latter days of Jurgen Klopp at the club. But how does that change with Arne Slot there? And as we're seeing Manchester United kind of rebuilt to a certain degree before our eyes, how does that factor into the way that we look at this game this weekend?
Yeah, it's fascinating because like half of me wants to say I actually think Liverpool are more likely to win now that they've got Slot as manager, not because he's a better manager than Klopp, but I think in these kind of games against the Man United team that do want to play counter-attacking football, the way in which Slot plays, he does suffocate that, and it does play with a little bit more control as opposed to Klopp's kind of end-to-end style, which does sometimes allow United to create a few chances on the break. So I am looking at the minus 113 and thinking that could potentially be a value, but I just want to see a little bit more from Liverpool before getting involved at this kind of price away. What is it's a tricky trip. You know, going to Old Trafford, we say what you will about how bad United have been. It's still a tough place to go. And yeah, they play Ipswich and Brentford. I rate Brentford highly. I don't think Ipswich will survive, but they're probably the best of the three promoted teams, and they've made light work of them. But my bet is going to be the same as last week, which won for us, is just taking the under in a Liverpool game. And, you know, again, if this was Jurgen Klopp in charge, I probably would be looking at maybe backing the over because I could see it being end-to-end. But the way in which Slot has been setting his team up, they really do pack the midfield. They've got a nice mid-block, and they just limit the amount of chances the opposition can make on the counter-attack. And I can see it being quite cagey. I can see it being quite tight. I think Liverpool will try and control the ball and not allow those quick transitions. And yeah, I think last week at Brentford, the line was at, we get it up, 3.75. So it's half a goal lower here, but you're playing Man United at home, who, you know, they actually looked half decent in terms of defensive structure against Fulham in the last home game. Limited Fulham very well. I know Fulham had a couple of decent opportunities to get shots away, but didn't. But I think this could be a very interesting game. And then you factor in the potential formation and system that Ten Hag's been playing with the Mount and Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro and Mainu midfield, almost box. And I could see that frustrating Liverpool quite a bit in terms of their creativity from those deep positions. So all in all, I think it's going to be quite a low scoring game. I won't be surprised to see this like another 2-0 kind of game for Liverpool. And I just think the goal total is a little bit too high. You're getting a minus 105 for 3.25. And that means that if it's exactly 3 goals, we get half a win. Any fewer than that, we get a full win.
Right. It's just difficult for me to play a Liverpool United game to the under. I understand absolutely why we go that way. Liverpool against Brentford last week, they could have won by a whole lot more than they actually did. And it's very, very early in the season, but if you're looking at their XG for Liverpool between the first 2 games, courtesy of Understat, 6.65. It's over 2 expected goals better than anyone else through those first 2 games. Yes, it's at Ipswich. Yes, it's at home to Brentford. But Manchester United, typically the way that they played against Liverpool in these games, they've had to take risks, and it's been a little bit more wide open. They played to a 2-2 result at Old Trafford in the Premier League last year. United, memorably, at least for me, beat Liverpool in extra time, 4-3 in the FA Cup. That was a big shock at that time as well. So there's been something about this tie, especially at Old Trafford in recent vintage, which kind of has me leaning in a United direction. I'm leaning towards, and I'm not making an official play, but I'm leaning towards playing United on the handicap because you're getting a half goal and it's at a plus number. Yes, slightly over even money, and we'll see how far it shifts out because I think that Liverpool money will come in because you look at that minus 113 to win. That is a bettable number if you're backing Liverpool and you think that it's legit what you're seeing. They still have some questions like Konaté and Van Dijk look to be a strong partnership on the back, but Quenza did start the year at that position. Robertson hasn't really been great to start the season. Trent Arnold's coming in, and he's not even playing 90 minutes. I'm not even sure if the preference of Undersot is to play him. And the manager's being rather ruthless at times over the course of this early season in his decision-making. So Gravenberch as a holding midfielder, I'm still just waiting to see what this Liverpool team is going to be all about. I was enthusiastic about their chances going into the year, but let's just see. A trip to Old Trafford is going to be a tricky one. I'm leaning to a pro United play, but nothing firm for me in this one. I guess we can move on. The markets are tough for this game, and nothing else really stands out in my eye. We should bring up Arsenal Brighton because it's a game that kicks off the weekend. And these are 2 teams with 2 games, 2 wins, and they've done it in a different way. Brighton look to be a really good attacking force. And they brought in an army of players to the point that they made 11 changes in the Carabao Cup tie on Tuesday. And some really intriguing young players as well into their ranks, coming off that last minute win against Manchester United. And Arsenal go to Aston Villa and come away with a clean sheet. They simply just don't look like they're going to concede a goal anytime soon. They are so strong defensively, Jake, and they're given reason to live up to those expectations that you and many others set, that this team could very well end up as Premier League champions when all is said and done. Arsenal minus 304 for a home win, plus 728 is a big number if you want to back Brighton. The handicap is set at a goal and a half, and the total is set at 3. How are you looking at this one? It should expectations, just like at the beginning of last season, are rising around Brighton, but this Arsenal side is kind of looking like a bit of a juggernaut.
Yeah, this is a really intriguing clash of styles with Arsenal kind of very much defence first, played for that control, and Brighton a little bit more chaotic. I mean, I don't have a bet in this game, but if I did, I would be looking at the under again. It's the line's at 3, and you're getting plus 102, and I just don't think. Like for me, this loses only if Brighton score more than once. I don't think Arsenal score more than twice. I don't think Brighton score more than once. I think it's going to be quite a tight game. There's going to be very little in it. But yeah, if you had me picking, I'd be going with an Arsenal win. I just think that the way in which they defend, you mentioned it there, the defensive solidity is one thing, but then having a goalkeeper who can pull off those kind of saves, and we've seen 2 big saves in back-to-back matches as well. It's not just a one-off. It's been two very good saves. Like those are the difficult moments for goalkeepers, especially playing in a good team where you're not really called upon at all throughout the match, and then you have to make that one big save when it comes. So having that solid back line that limits the number of chances, and then having a good goalkeeper to be able to save the chances that do slip through is the making of a very, very good side. So yeah, I'd be going unders just again based on the fact that Arsenal's defence is so good. I could easily see them keeping a clean sheet, even though this is a good Brighton team. It's something we've just become accustomed to, isn't it, with Arsenal?
Yeah. I mean, you can get them on the under 3 at plus 102 on Pinnacle. Decent enough number. That was my initial look, but I kind of thought the same way that you were thinking, that Arsenal win to 0 could be an even better play. And that's available at plus 131. And that will be an official full unit play for me. 2 meetings between these two sides last season, 2 clean sheets for Arsenal. And this Arsenal side is even better defensively for me, especially at home. This is where Brighton looked a little bit naive at times, and with a lot of young and good players, they might be overwhelmed, try to force things, do a little bit too much in this game, and I think that could work to a detriment to them. 16 goals conceded at home by Arsenal was joint best in the Premier League last season. Brighton only scored 25 away. That was in the bottom half. They weren't a great away side last season, were they? I understand new managers, some new players, but I think it'll be a similar outcome. So at plus 131, that's a preferable play for me. Arsenal to win to 0. Perhaps we're more enticed by the total actually going over in this game because it's Newcastle and Spurs. Newcastle's been a little bit of a relatively slow start. They had an early sending off against Southampton, held on for a home win, 1-0. Then they played to a 1-1 draw against Bournemouth, where they're a little bit fortunate to have won that, to come away with a point away from home. As for Spurs, they got back on track, back in the goals last week after a frustrating opening day 1-1 draw at Leicester City. I mean, the total's predictably high when these two sides play. Generally, the overs are the play, but I just wonder if they've priced themselves out of the market a little bit here. This game goes on Sunday. You can back Newcastle at plus 153. Should mention Sandro Tonali's back from his suspension. At Spurs plus 156. The total is set at 3.5. Is that a number that's a little bit too high to touch at this point, or based on the fact that the way that these two sides play and the way that they play one another, that's still a bettable number?
If anything, I probably will be leaning the under. Again, just early season. Half of me is just. I've been a little bit disappointed with Newcastle. I mean, throw the Southampton game to one side because playing with 10 men for so long and actually coming away with a win it should be seen as a very good win, no matter whether they, conceded chances or what, you're going to expect them to rack up, for the opposition to rack up a big XG total playing against 10 men. But yeah, the Bournemouth game was a little bit alarming in the sense that that Bournemouth really did create a lot of good chances, and it seemed very easy for 70 minutes for them to get through. And I just think that that'll be something that Eddie Howe will look at and will tighten up. And I think that obviously last season they were mental for goals. They were really, really high scoring team to follow. But people might forget that when they actually finished fourth and qualified for the Champions League, their defensive record was outstanding. And it was that kind of carried them through. Even at home, there was, probably, I think it's 8 or 9 or maybe 10 of the 19 games went under 2.5 goals at home. They were very tight and cagey, and they'd really ground out some of the victories. So, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see this kind of 1-0, 1-1 streak going for Newcastle, because I think that, as we see with City and Arsenal, the two best defensive teams in the league, that's what provides you consistency. You can't rely on crazy hot finishing to carry you all season. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see them batten down the hatches in inverted commas and look to play that high pressing style, frustrate Spurs. And again, it's just a high line for me. So I would again be taking the unders. It's not an official play. I have 3 official plays in the Prem. One of them has been on the featured match and the other 2 to come, but I definitely will be leaning the unders here.
I wanted to flag this game because it's a big one and it's traditionally very watchable. Just for some context in the totals, last year, Newcastle won 4-0 at home. Spurs won 4-0 at home. The year before, 6-1 Newcastle. It was 2-1 Newcastle, 5-1 the year before, 3-2, 2-2. Like, they're just smashing the overs every time they play. And Postecoglou hasn't changed the way that he plays. And players like Isak just haven't got off the mark yet. You go to Bournemouth, it's a difficult place for Newcastle to go, to be honest with you. I think I would make still a small play on the over in this one, despite it being at 3.5. Call me a fool. Call me a straight here. Whatever. I mean, it's just the way that these two teams play, and I think it could be a game full of goals. What are your other plays this weekend? What other markets are catching your eye, Jake?
So my other markets that catch the eye are actually overs. So going against everything I've put up so far with the unders, I've actually found a couple of overs bets. The first one being Chelsea v Palace. The line's set at 3. It's -111. I mean, Chelsea simply are just the epitome of chaos right now, on the pitch and off the pitch. So many players coming through, but so many talented players as well. That kind of gets lost in the furore around how many transfers they've made. They've actually brought in a lot of quality players. It's just a case of can they fit together and make a functioning team. And they look good against Wolves. They were clinical against Wolves, but they also looked very, very vulnerable defensively. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of very high scoring matches involving Chelsea this season. Obviously, Palace, they're no slouches when it comes to goals. Both the Prem matches have gone over 2.5. The 2-1 defeat. It was 2-1 defeat, then a 2-0 defeat to West Ham, but they created enough chances to get on the score sheet. And now they've got Jean-Philippe Mateta back. I think he's fit enough to start and play a full 90 after playing the Olympics. A couple of new players coming through the door as well. So I think they'll fancy their chances. I mean, Oliver Glasner loves the transition, and I think they'll get plenty of opportunities to do that at Stamford Bridge and cause potentially an upset. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Palace went there and got a victory, but I'll be playing the overs in that one.
Just to back you on that, I think that the fact that Palace on the handicap, it's at a goal +1, and it can get them at +116. That shifted up from about -110 to -116. Get it now. I mean, this game has like a 2-2 written all over it for me. Just the way that it could very well play out. Go ahead. I back you on the total, but I think I might like to continue fading Chelsea for the time being and backing Palace. I don't think that they've been as bad as the results would dictate. And they played well in Carabao Cup on Tuesday as well, getting some new players important minutes in Glasner's side. What other match caught your eye?
The other one, I couldn't believe the price on this. It's over 2.5 goals in Ipswich Fulham. The line is low compared to most of the matches on the board, and we're getting -115 for over 2.5 goals. And I just think I think the line should be set at 3 for this game. And Ipswich, they've obviously lost to both their opening matches. They played City and Liverpool. I don't think they were expecting anything else. But this will be the first game they look at and think this is our first winnable game of the season. Like all their pre-season preparation, they wouldn't have been prepping hard for Liverpool Man City matches, thinking we're going to go win these matches. This is the first game they'll be like, right, this is circled on the calendar. We're going to go and have a go at winning this. And it's worth mentioning, I know it's a championship, but last season, 17 of Ipswich's 23 home games went over 2.5 goals. And they averaged 4 goals per game at home, which is insane. And they're playing a Fulham team who aren't exactly, against goals. They are very much a team that play sometimes with reckless abandon. We saw that on the opening day against Manchester United. United could have scored 2, could have scored 3. Away from home last season, they conceded nearly 2 expected goals against per game. 2.04 it was at United. And overall, the matches last season on the road, they averaged 3.2 goals per game. So I'm just shocked at the line. I think this is probably one of my favourite bets of the season so far. I know we're only in the third game week, but this is probably my favourite bet of the season so far that we've covered. I'm shocked at how low the line is.
Well done. 2 quick plays for me, and then we'll move things forward. The first is I'm backing Aston Villa at Leicester City. I think Villa's played 2 good teams out of the gate in Lopetegui's West Ham and then Arsenal. Going to Leicester City, some of their starters did play in the Carabao Cup on Tuesday. Villa have had plenty of time to prepare. They're going to want this is their first one where I think they could have an emphatic victory. Minus 127 is bettable in its own right to win outright. But if you step it up on the handicap to 0.75, you can back Villa at plus 103. I will be doing that. I think they can win by multiple goals in this game. And I'm going to back Wolves on the handicap at plus half a goal going to Forest. I just don't think Forest are a great team. I think that Wolves, it's an anomaly what happened in the second half against Chelsea. It's 2-2, they're right in it. Then it's like meltdown mode. Oftentimes when you see teams like this that completely collapse in this win, in a really, let's be honest, in a really embarrassing way, they bounce back with a much better performance than if they had lost the game 3-2 or something like that. So I think it's a good bounce back spot. It's another game. I don't bet the draw, but I think it has draw written all over it. Forest and Wolves. I like Wolves on the handicap in that one as well. We should mention there are midweek La Liga fixtures which are going on and will happen after this podcast. So looking ahead to La Liga this weekend, a little bit difficult for me. I'm going to stay away from making a play. I'm not sure if you're looking at anything in La Liga that catches your eye, despite not knowing what may happen midweek, Jake.
Yeah, I like. We had a winner last week in La Liga. It was Real Madrid to win 0 against Real Valladolid, and Valladolid now have the joy of going to play Barcelona. So they back up Real Madrid with a trip to Barcelona. They have a home game. We're recording this on Wednesday. They play Wednesday night against Leganes. But I think I'm just going to rinse and repeat. Barca win to 0 plus 111. Again, I'll mention it again. Like I said last week, Valladolid scored just 18 in 21 away matches in the second division last season. Managed just 0.38 expected goals against Real Madrid. And while Barca have conceded in all 3 matches so far this season, they've played far better attacking teams than Valladolid and conceded just 1 expected goal per game. I think this could be a very comfortable afternoon for Barca. That's a 4 p.m. kickoff UK time, which is nice and early, actually. But yeah, I thought I was going to get another minus figure, really, because it was minus 112 for the bet last week. But we're getting a little bit more juice, and I think that is well worth backing.
All right. What about Serie A? We documented it. It has been absolute chaos. Juventus has played 2 games. They've been straightforward, playing weaker sides, but have looked decent in their own right, taking on a Roma side, which has really struggled here out of the gate. I mean, how are you looking at this game and how things may play out?
Yeah, so I'm a little annoyed that we're recording this at our usual time and not an hour earlier, because the price has shifted dramatically on my bet. I say dramatically, it's shifted from minus 120 to minus 131. So the sharps were already getting on. And it's Juventus to win. It might not come as a huge surprise, as you mentioned there. Roma have had a really bad start to the season, but it goes further than that. Daniele De Rossi has not done a very good job since being in charge at Roma. Since he came in, I think it was January. who's put in an interim charge. They've picked up the 10th most expected points in Serie A. They've had the 8th best attack according to expected goals and the 13th best defence according to expected goals. So they're a mid-table team, and we're getting Juventus, who have started the season very well under a very good manager in Thiago Motta. We're getting them at a price that doesn't quite reflect as if they were playing a mid-table team. They've looked solid defensively, as you would always expect from Juve. They've conceded 0.17 and 0.52 XG in their 2 matches. And as you said, Roma have been all over the place, conceding loads of chances, conceded over 3 expected goals to Empoli. I mean, that is not the kind of thing you expect to see from a side that wants to push for the Champions League spot. So I think there's a bit of value in taking Juventus, even though the number that has shifted. Again, get on now, because that's probably only going to get shorter. They probably go off at -150 or maybe lower.
We also have Lazio and AC Milan this week. I mean, I backed Milan back-to-back weeks, but nothing has come easy in these first 2 weeks. Is Lazio a good spot to get back on track here? I'm looking at AC Milan to back them at a pick'em. So you're kind of lowering the bar a little bit at -118 on Pinnacle. That's going to be my play, because although AC Milan hasn't been convincing, I just don't think that Lazio are a very good side at this point.
Yeah, the 2 teams that haven't really got off to the best of starts, and Milan's is more of a bit of misfortune, I would say. The first game, they were unfortunate not to come away with a win. The second game, they probably deserved a draw on the balance of the chances. So, what we do know, just from looking at obviously the score lines, but also the chances that are created and conceded, is that Fonseca has brought his style to Milan. They are very good going forward. They're creating a lot of chances, but defensively they are vulnerable. So I would potentially be looking at maybe taking the over there at -112. And Lazio aren't exactly the highest of scoring teams, but could be a little way in there.
Yeah, like I said, I'll be backing Milan again in this one. They beat Lazio 3 straight occasions as well, all to 0, 1-0 and a couple 2-0 victories. I can kind of see something similar playing out this weekend. Also want to bring up Atalanta and Inter. I think that this might be a bettable number. These 2 sides actually lead La Liga right now in terms of expected goals. Yes, it's early in the season, but Atalanta's playing style, we've documented this on a previous show, that their playing style opens themselves up to not only creating chances, but conceding goals as well. And it worked to their detriment in a 2-1 loss at Torino last week. And I just look at the total, and as much as you're inclined to bet the unders when it comes to Inter, this is maybe one of those games that you can look to the over and say, perhaps that's the salient play. What do you make of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever Atalanta are involved, I think I said it last week, the line should be at 3, because you are usually guaranteed at least 2 goals, one for Atalanta, one for the opposition, and then generally you get 1 or 2 extra either way. So, I think the stats say it all, really. Atalanta have created 5.6 expected goals, conceded 4.4. So loads of chances, and they've not really played anyone that you would expect to be up and around the Champions League European places. So this is the first big test, and Inter could easily carve them open.
Yeah, let's move on to the Bundesliga this weekend. Just the second week of that competition, but a really intriguing match. It's going to be Bayer Leverkusen against RB Leipzig. How do you look at this game? I mean, Leverkusen, it's like being the late show over and over again. We joked about it last week. Perhaps another late winner might come their way, and it came 90 plus 13 last week to open up the new Bundesliga campaign. Is that the way that you see things playing out again? Another high wire act against Leipzig?
Well, for my bet, I hope not. I'm backing Leverkusen to win. I don't want to be sweating that hard. But yeah, I think the price is more than fair. -129. We're talking about a team that's unbeaten in 35 Bundesliga matches. Might even be longer than that. It's, they went a full season and then starting the campaign with a win. That -129, and Leipzig weren't very convincing against Bochum. They actually lost the XG battle. According to Understat, they had one of their starting centre-halves sent off. He's going to be unavailable.
Orban.
Willy Orban. So, I think Leverkusen are in a good spot, and they seem to have done a decent bit of business as well, kind of recovering from a few losses. So, like we said last week, it wouldn't be at all surprising to see them go back to back and win another Bundesliga title. And these are the kind of matches they have to win. But I expected a little bit shorter, so I'm going to back them at that number.
Well, I'm going to go for a little bit more of a reach. Both teams to score and Leverkusen to win, because that's the way they've been playing. They've been conceding goals, but then they've been punching back in a really impressive way. So both teams to score, yes, combined with the winner, Bayer Leverkusen at plus 208, a nice little juicy number there. And if they do leave it late, then that's fine by me, as long as it's 1-1, 2-2 at the time where they ended up scoring that inevitable match winner. Do you have any other plays that stick out to you from the Bundesliga?
No, just that one for me.
I like Eintracht Frankfurt and Hoffenheim. Frankfurt to win and both teams to score, again at plus 214 in this one. This is kind of the history. This is kind of what plays out between these two sides when they play. Just bringing this up on my screen. Frankfurt and Hoffenheim are both high in just in terms of XG through their first game, have created a lot of chances. I think that Frankfurt's the better team in this game. I have no problem getting just on with them, getting on side with them, period, end of story. Last season, 2-3-1 victories for Frankfurt. It was 3-1 Hoffenheim before that, Frankfurt 4-2, 2-2, 3-0. Like, this is perennially an over, and both teams to score when these two teams play. And there's nothing that I've seen over the course of the preseason or the first week of the season that would convince me otherwise. Hoffenheim scored 3 last weekend in a 3-2 victory, and Frankfurt were up. It was a tough way to open the season at Dortmund to start. This is back home, a good position, and a match where head-to-head, both teams to score, and over 2.5 have played in their last 9 occasions. That's about it for me. I was considering a Dortmund play over Werder Bremen. I just think that the line is a little bit off in this game. The fact that you can get on side with Dortmund at minus 119 to win this game. This is more about what I think about Werder Bremen than it does about Borussia Dortmund playing away from home. They weren't that bad playing away from home last season. It was their home record in Bundesliga that was a little bit surprising. But at minus 118, I can back that number for Dortmund to go to Bremen and come away with a victory. I think they're going to have a good season. I understand there's a new manager, might be some growing pains. Came away with a clean sheet last weekend. This is a game that perhaps could stick with the unders as well, but I prefer Dortmund just to win at that price. It's a bettable number for me. Anything else this weekend to keep your eye on, Jake, or is that about it?
That is about it.
All right.
We covered a lot there, haven't we?
And I'm pretty exhausted. Look, we're looking forward to this weekend. Next week, we'll take the week off with the international window, but we'll be back the week after that with the complete transfer window wrap-up. We'll see how things play out between here and the end of the week and how that may affect any potential future market. On behalf of Jake, I am Wheels. This has been episode 3 of Pinnacle FC, the home of smart betting.